Welcome to Kung Fu Africa number 2. So, I'm making this video because I touched on it in my reminder video, and I need to do this one first before I can do the other two, because the other two are more important than this video. Alright? So, let me explain this. Alright? I'm only going to explain this one time. I hope. You can be a great fighter. You can be the best of the best in the city, in the world, everywhere. It does not mean that you can't get your ass beat. Somebody could get lucky. Somebody could be more skillful. Because unless, like, legally, you get into, like, this as a profession, and you fight everybody on the card until you reach that pinnacle era where you decide that you want to retire. If you want to if you want to retire undisputed, then you can retire undisputed. But life goes on. And just because you've retired undisputed doesn't mean that you can't get your ass handed to you by some lucky motherfucker in the streets, or somebody who's just more skillful in the streets, you know. Because you gotta understand how fights work. I make videos about this shit all the time. I tell you don't try it if you haven't been properly trained, but I also tell you, you gotta know how fucking fights work. Fights don't work like in the movies. The reason the fights in the movies work is because they have a pretty good goddamn stunt team and a good fight coordinator to make that shit look cool. And they do all that shit, and for the most part, it works out fairly well. But in real life, first and foremost, most fights don't last but 3 to 5 minutes. You don't have to believe me, but trust me when I tell you, most fights, 3 to 5. 3 to 5 minutes. And it really depends on the skill set of whoever the fuck's the victor. You know, some fights don't even last that long. I'm not talking about arguments. I'm talking about all out, drag out, knockdown, slobber knocker motherfuckers. Some of them fights don't last that long. It depends on who the fuck you are fighting. I don't care if you don't like what I have to say. It's the motherfucking truth. If I bump into somebody and I don't know who they were, and we fighting over some dumb shit, and they decide they're gonna swing, and I get lucky and I block it, and I swing and my shit connects and they go to sleep. If somebody's there and they video record that shit, and next damn thing is all over the news, Echo Fang Grey Wolf knocks out former UFC champion, any goddamn one of them. It can happen. It has happened. Just go look for shit. And, you know, because here's the reality. Alright, if you're a UFC fighter, you know legally you ain't supposed to be fighting in the streets in the first goddamn place. Doesn't mean you won't. Just means you're not supposed to, because you're a professional fighter. That is your profession. You can go to jail for that shit. Now, as a normal person, you can still go to jail for fighting in the fucking streets. But a lot of people don't understand how fights work. Alright? Once you understand how fights work, things work differently. And again, you have to understand how fights work. I hit you, you hit me. Either I know what I'm doing or I don't. And you know, it's a cut and dry case, you know. Either you know what you're doing or you don't, and either you will or you won't. And when it comes down to fighting, anything can happen in a fight. A very well prepared black belt can still get his ass kicked by somebody who knows absolutely no martial arts at all. He just got lucky. Maybe you slipped. Maybe he threw a chair. Maybe he threw a table. Something happened and your black belt ass got handed to you. Now, let me make this a little bit more politically correct, because I'm probably going to offend a few martial artists. I'm going to piss you off. I'm not going to offend. I'm going to straight piss you the fuck off. Because here's that one true truth that everybody forgets. Your black belt as a martial artist only counts in 2 places. The dojo and a court of law. Alright? Let me break that down for you. The court of law is because that shit can work more against you than for you. Alright? The dojo is because everybody in the dojo strives to get that black belt. Everybody. Except for me. They strive to get that black belt. I strive to learn how to beat black belts. I don't give a fuck about a belt. You know, a belt is only to hold up your pants. And this is that part that pisses off martial artists when you say that. I put in that fucking work. I got that black belt. I broke that board. I broke that brick. I did the little fight scene thing. Yes, you did. And that fight scene thing, in case you forgot, it's a fight scene. It is a amalgamized way of you being able to be on your feet at the fly. And 9 times out of 10, your teacher has made sure that everybody pulls their punches. And 9 times out of 10, especially if you're not wearing equipment, is basically a what should you do scenario. That's it. Real life don't work like that. Real life people come at you fast and continuously, and they're swinging for the fences. Sometimes they have things in their hands. And if you think I can't fuck you up with this comb, then you have not studied martial arts very long. As a martial artist, anything that I put in my hand becomes a part of my skill set. Whether it be this or a bloody fucking tampon, I better be able to use that shit to hurt you real bad. And if I can't, then we got a problem. As for the tampon, I wouldn't know where the hell I would have got that, but if I had a bloody tampon and I'm using it in a fight, I'm trying to stick that shit up your nose. Because that's going to at least gross you out enough for me to get an opening. Now, as for everything else, this comb, cut across your neck the right way, it's the force behind it that's going to cut you. This is not sharp. But if I get across you fast and sharp enough, it's going to do enough damage that you're going to be bleeding out. And you're not going to want that. So, as I tell people, if you are a martial artist, damn near anything that you touch should be part of your weapon set. And even if it's not, you should be able to adapt to use it at all fucking times. That black belt is only going to work for you in the dojo. Joe Blow down the street and John Mack and Billy Bob, they don't give a flying fuck that you have a black belt. They ain't even gonna know unless you tell them. Now if you tell them, they go, oh, this motherfucker got a black belt. Now we really gotta fight harder to make sure this motherfucker don't get us in some of those chop sake moves. You know, ha ha ha. Now the only time those chop sake moves really scare people is when Joe Blow, Billy Bob, and John down the street come across an Asian person. Because then they're like, oh, nah, this motherfucker Asian, so this motherfucker might know his shit. And stereotypically, that's what keeps a lot of people away from fucking with a lot of Asians. You know? Now, some Asians don't even know karate or kung fu or how to fight. But as long as you believe that they do, you ain't gonna fuck with them. No, I'm like this. Don't fuck with me, I won't fuck with you. I don't give a fuck if you know kung fu or karate. And if you're Asian, and that shit don't mean nothing to me. If you're Asian and you know kung fu, good for you. You know, I've met some Asians that didn't know kung fu. And most of them motherfuckers really do know that shit. But if you don't know that they don't know it, you're not gonna know it until you swing at them. If you swing at them and they don't fight back, then they don't know kung fu. If you swing at them and they break your motherfucking arm and bust your shit up, well, you picked the wrong Asian that day. And you got your shit racked. And you deservingly so. Because you shouldn't go around picking fucking fights with people. But back to the story at hand. Just because you are a champion, just because you have a black belt, just because you run a dojo, it does not mean anything to anybody outside of that. Now, when you are in a court of law, some are here in this video, when you are in a court of law, you technically can have that black belt used against you. I technically can have all these YouTube videos used against me. And I'm going to explain that to you just in case everybody doesn't seem to understand shit. Yeah. My byline says actor, martial artist. It might say martial artist, actor, but I was a martial artist first and I was a street fighter before that. I have confessed to being a street fighter since the age of 6. And you think that a judge isn't going to pull up Echo Fang, Grey Wolf, and find James Williams Jr. admitting Kung Fu Havoc #1 and Kung Fu Havoc #2 that he's been fighting in the streets since he was 6 years old, and you think that shit's not going to come back to bite me in the ass in a court of law? Yes, it will. But I am aware of that. The problem is relevance. Alright? So, if I fight 7 dudes and I cripple them all, that's the relevance. It's like, well, Mr. Williams is 5'3". Each one of these dudes is 6'2". Looks like we got a clear-cut case of self-defense. It's 5 of them, it's 1 of him, he's 5'3", they're 6'2". He broke all they shit up. Relevance. Now let's say that shit's one-on-one. The guy I fight don't know Kung Fu. But there's witnesses saying that I tried to avoid and de-escalate. Then I'm going to probably win that one. Now if the shoe was on the other foot and I'm picking this fight with this motherfucker and they were like, Mr. Williams assaulted this young man, and Mr. Williams beat the brakes off of him, and Mr. Williams broke the guy's elbows and kneecaps. Well, they're going to find that YouTube thing, because I've taught people how to break elbows and kneecaps, and it's like, Mr. Williams is a martial artist. Mr. Williams is a vet of the Army National Guard. Mr. Williams started that goddamn fight. We got it all on tape. Mr. Williams is going to be a fuck kitten without a cat. Because Mr. Williams got all these videos out of me doing martial arts. So the judge asked me, hey, so do you do martial arts? If I try to play that shit off, well, actually, sir, I'm an actor. I did all this shit for clout. I can almost guarantee you, somebody's going to remember Jonah. Somebody's going to show up at that court case. Nah, Jonah ain't no actor. Jonah beat my ass when we were 6 years old. Mine too. And you think these motherfuckers ain't gonna come out the woodwork? And remember, I beat their ass? And you think they ain't gonna be like, yeah, I remember that motherfucker. We was over in West Haven at 811 E. Hardy Drive. That motherfucker jumped my shit by the dumpster. Didn't happen, but only takes one. Which goes back to relevance. If I started the fight and I beat this motherfucker within inches of his life, you better believe that each and every one of these Kung Fu Havoc 2 videos, it's gonna come back to bite me in the ass. It is. And that could be said for anybody, like BJ Penn and all the other fucking people. Shout out to BJ Penn. Shout out to Randy Couture. If these motherfuckers get to fighting with somebody on the street and literally beat their shit to death, they were like, well, Couture, Penn, Griffin, couple of black guys whose names I forget at the moment, Kimbo Slice. If these motherfuckers beat somebody halfway to hell and the motherfucker can't recover, it's going to be the same shit for me. But it's going to be worse for them because they were professionals. And it's like, well, we watched all y'all videos, and they're going to watch all those UFC fights and say, you had no business fighting this man in the street. You know better because you are a professional. Now, there's a catch-22 to that. So let's make sure we understand there is a catch-22 to that. Self-defense. If you are famous, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, whatever, if you are famous, but you don't have that money for that bodyguard or whatever, which most martial artists, we don't need bodyguards because we guard our own damn selves, but like regular ass celebrities who have bodyguard money, them motherfuckers, they got lawyers, they'll get them on. But somebody like me, or somebody like Randy Couture or Chuck Liddell or BJ Penn or some shit like that, if we get to fighting and all these videos surface, dude, the only thing that will save our ass is that guy's famous factor. You knew that was Chuck Liddell. Why the fuck would you walk up to Chuck Liddell and try to punch him in the face knowing what Chuck Liddell does for a living? You don't want to do that shit. Shout out to Chuck Liddell. If you're just a regular Joe Blow on the street, the last thing you want to do, shout out to BJ Penn, you don't want to walk over to BJ Penn and piss in his cereal. You don't want to do that shit. You don't want to do anything that's going to piss off a dude whose fucking profession is a modern day Spartan where he beats people up for a living. So the only way that shit would work is the fact that they know who they are. They're just like, all right, we know this guy's famous. Hell, judge probably put some money on him. Same thing can happen to me. It's like, well, we got you. We watch your videos on YouTube all the time, Echo Fan Grey Wolf. We know that you fucking do martial arts. We know you're trying to break into this acting business, and you bludgeoned this dude. Why did you bludgeon this dude? It's like, well, I bludgeoned this motherfucker because he attacked me first. And they'll be like, okay. Now we got to take it to the court. Now we got to take it to the jury. Now let's say the guy that I bludgeoned was just somebody, was nobody special. Because I'm nobody special. But let's say they take it to court. He's never had a criminal record. I have never had a criminal record. And they decide pros and cons. Echo Fan Grey Wolf, it's his real first offense. They still gonna charge me some shit. Especially if I break his knees and his elbows and leave him laying there. Now let's say we fight each other to a dead standstill. They both gonna get us for assault. But because I'm a martial artist and a vet, they may throw harder charges on my ass because I am a veteran of the United States Army. So they're like, yeah, this motherfucker's a veteran. He knew what the fuck he was doing. when that fight started. He should have tried to de-escalate the shit. Now, I will say the only thing that might save my life is the fact that I'm 5'3.5". So, again, understand, just because somebody is a champion or a black belt, it does not mean that they can't get their ass beat. And don't let anybody tell you otherwise. And I'll tell you one more thing. Just because somebody has a reputation for fighting does not mean that they're a good fighter. It just means that day was their day. It means whoever they fought either couldn't fight, didn't see it coming, or didn't know what the fuck to do when the fight was going in the other person's way. Which means they didn't know drop and get in the fetal position and pray to this motherfucker show you some mercy. Happens. Hopefully I made this somewhat clear. And if I didn't, I'm sorry. But again, just because you have a black belt, don't mean you can beat everybody. You might be able to beat everybody in that fucking dojo. Don't mean you can beat everybody in the city. Doesn't mean you can beat everybody in the town. Doesn't mean you can beat everybody in the state. Doesn't mean you can beat everybody in the next 5 states over. Doesn't mean you can't, but it damn sure don't mean that you can. I don't have a black belt. I've beaten black belts in sparring matches. I've beaten people bigger than me up with little to no effort because I know what the fuck I'm doing. Now, if you know your way around a fight, you're going to be in good shape for the most part. If you don't know your way around the fight, you might not be in as good a shape. But the fight is not over as long as you're breathing. Now, if your breath shuts down and you shut down, that's a different ball game. But for me and people like me, we'll fight till we can't breathe. And keep fighting after that. Or as they said in the Avengers, if you get hurt, hurt them back. If you get killed, walk it off. Enough said. I'm Echo Fan Grey Wolf. Much love. Peace seeing you. Next video is going to piss everybody off. The next 2, actually.